Hello everyone, welcome back to the SN Studio for a quick review of the new Orc and Goblin Arcane Journal. Big thank you to you Games Workshop for sending us a copy ahead of time so we can take a look. Our plan is to eventually get a game going for Orcs and Goblins, of course, in the coming weeks. And on top of that, we're going to be hopefully using some of the elements in this book. However, I'll be giving a short review on elements of the book, how we feel about it, and how it might be a little bit difficult to actually put out one of the Armies of Renown in this book. So coming up, let's take a look at these Armies of Renown, the cool little ambush mission we have, and then some of the magic items and magic spells. So along with lots of lore and story, everything in the start, which we're getting obviously used to with the Arcane Journal so far that we've seen, there's a cool little ambush scenario here. So Ambush of Winter's Teeth pass. And essentially, there's an orc raiding party from the mountains against a dwarven caravan. Now, what I like about the particular mission is that there are goods carts in the center, and obviously you're surrounded by orcs. But of course, you can probably use other factions for it. But quite a nice little fun narrative-based ambush scenario, and adding a bit more flavor to our games so that we have, of course, the core missions. But now we have this one as well, which I quite like, and I hope they continue to do that in the Arcane Journals going forward. But a nice fun one on top of that. So, along with all the artwork and everything else that we're all going to see, there are two specific Armies of Renown in this book. We have the Nomadic War, and then we have the Troll Horde. And first impressions on these, I'll go into them both in a moment, but first impressions are that I really like the Nomadic War. I love the idea and concept of it, as well as the Troll Horde. But I do feel that it was strange choices on GW's behalf when there are other, probably more accessible Armies of Renown that are available to the Orcs and Goblins, considering their wide range of models, that probably would have fit the bill a little bit better and would have allowed for Orcs and Goblins players to kind of get more stuck into their Armies of Renown. So what we've seen obviously so far with the Tomb Kings, with the Mortuary Cult, or Cetra's own host, is that there's actually a lot of opportunity to use the existing models that you have to create those Armies of Renown. Same for Bretonnians, you have the exiled Barons, and then you also have the Crusade. Again, you have a lot of leeway there to make those armies between your existing army, or you can lean into the Armies of Renown. With this one, comment below, tell me how you feel. I do love, like I said, the concepts of them, like an all-mounted nomadic war, or a very heavy troll army. Everyone remembers, what's his name, Throg, the Troll King. And it's very cool, but it's difficult, I feel, for Orcs and Goblins players that may have an existing force, which obviously arrays with Orc Boys, Night Goblins, Black Orcs, all this kind of stuff, Savage Orcs, and yet this army is, for example, the Nomadic War, you have to be all mounted, and then for the Trolls, obviously, the whole point of it is you have a lot of Trolls in the armies. The Troll one's probably a little bit more accessible, because you could not lean into that many Trolls, but it's just a strange one for me, because there was a lot of talk, at least among groups and chats that I've seen, is, is it going to be like a Savage Orc-based Army of Renown? Is it going to be a Night Goblin-specific one? And yet they've come out with these two options that I think are more limiting, because we have, for example, an army. We have Chris, which is one of our local players that comes to play us with the Old World, and his Black Orc force, but we also have another Orc army, which we'll be showcasing shortly, but it's a very generic Orc army, and we can't make a Nomadic War really out of it because we don't have that many mounted troops. And the same goes for the Troll Horde. We have some Trolls, but we don't have enough to make it worth a Troll Horde. And I feel like a lot of players are going to be in a similar situation where they'll look at these and go, well, great, I'll have to invest quite a lot into buying lots of Trolls to make it worthwhile for an Army of Renown, or I'm going to have to get all mounted, Orc chariots and everything else. So a bit of a mixed bag in that respect. Cool concepts, really like the ideas of the armies. I just think that perhaps maybe a kind of Savage Orc with Forest Goblins and all that kind of more like traditional, as it were, Orc style could go a lot further for people, because Forest Goblin Spider Riders, Forest Goblins, savage orcs, etc., orc shamans, everything else, can lean into those perhaps. Whereas, and your night goblins, I mean, there's a lot of night goblin models. They have obviously all of the, I want to say Gloomspite Gits for AOS. All the models there in that range. There's a lot of crossover opportunity in order to make those armies and give the extra enhancements if you want to lean into a night goblin kind of force. And they're very iconic. So anyway, a bit of a mixed bag on those two, but still a lot of fun. Let's dig into the Nomadic War, and that's coming up next. So going into the Nomadic War, as I just mentioned, you have, of course, everything to be mounted. You've got the option of Wolf Rider mobs or Goblin Wolf chariots in your core, along with, if your general's an Orc boss, you can have an Orc Warboy mob, a bit like other limitations we've seen in the actual rules mustering armies themselves. And then if you're a Black Orc boss, you have something very cool, which I do like a lot of, is a Black Orc chariot, which is very cool. Unfortunately, I believe that you can only use it in a Nomadic War, which is a real shame, because if you have the opportunity to have a Black Orc chariot in your standard army, I think that would be a great little addition, and this book would give that, you know, whereas you can only use it, it seems, in a Nomadic War, which is a bit upsetting. I understand why they did it, because obviously you can't have Black Orc units, so now you just have the chariots themselves as like a go-between. And then, other than that, it's a little bit limiting, of course, because you just have Warboy mobs, chariots, Snotling pump wagons, and then that's pretty much it. So in terms of the all being mounted, there is a more limited choice. But what they've done with that is that in terms of the special rules, they've lent into the maneuverability, adaptability of the units. So you have here the opportunity to create goblin ambushes. So they get the ambush special rule for a point each, along with characters and stuff. And then, of course, they hit them hard, hit them fast, or hit them fast, hit them hard, I should say. Again, adds a little bit more in terms of the impact hits, a little bit more of the punch, because you don't have those bricks of infantry in order to soak up and kind of fight your, you know, center ground or whatever it might be in terms of the tactics you're using. So they're trying to make it bit more impactful when it comes to your mounted stuff, because you have less models essentially. So yeah, it's an interesting one. The Nomadic War, like I said, is a concept. I really love it. I've always loved the thought of having loads of chariots and loads of boar boys and everything else. But yeah, to have it as an army of renown, like specifically of the two you get out of the option, I'm not entirely sure. But let me know how you feel below if you're going to be doing a Nomadic War army yourself. We only have a little bit to showcase, so we won't be doing one anytime soon. But it would be a cool project to get stuck into. So next up, let's quickly check out the Troll Horde, and that's coming up next. So, Troll Hordes. Again, another awesome concept. Everyone loves a stone troll or a river troll. And having whole troll armies does sound pretty cool. The other awesome part is, of course, the Troll Hag, which has returned. I think it was a Forge World model back in the day, but it has returned, and has a special rule called Motherly Love, which is also a caster. So there's a couple of nice, like, niche little troll bits in this that are quite fun. There's an enhancement of regeneration across the board where you can reroll. And also they have Oid Disway, which allows for basically the problems with trolls. Obviously, is stupidity. We have to do stupidity checks every strategy phase. They're trying to mitigate that using the Oid Disway special rule, where you can kind of use leadership characteristics in a broader variety than just using your general in a normal game, or a normal army, I should say. So, again, with this one, there is limitations. There's no Black Orcs and other parts. You have Orc mobs, Goblin mobs, Spider Rider mobs, and Wolf Riders, and some Boar Boys and Boar Chariots. So there is options there in terms of if you have an existing army of those kind of core units, then you can lean into those. But otherwise, you have to have a troll mob per 1,000 points. So I guess if you take a 2,000 point army, you need 2 troll mobs in your core, and you can take an additional troll mob as a core choice per troll hag taken. So again, trying to really lean into as many trolls as possible. Again, great concept. Love the idea of a troll army, but how many players have enough trolls to field the whole army? A little bit more difficult, I think. So I don't know how much use we'll see of that on the table, but I really love the idea of it overall again. So yeah, there's not much else to say. They have Troll Tongue, which is essentially now some of the new magic troll magic you can now do, and we'll dip into that in a moment. Otherwise, yeah, pretty standard. Yeah, not a lot there to go on other than, if you like trolls, look at the troll horde. So I did skip over the characters. There are 2 new characters. One, as you can imagine, leans into the troll horde, and then one will lean into the Nomadic War. But I'll leave people to look at those in their own rights. I think obviously you'd be looking at taking them if you're taking either Army of Renown to kind of buff up particular styles of play when it comes to either Nomadic War or the troll horde. Now, in terms of the lore of troll magic, a positive, it's awesome that there's more flavor. There's a whole new magic lore. So it's not like what you normally do where you would pick one of the spells out of your specific lore of your current army. You have an entire new lore here. So you have a signature spell and you have 6 normal spells. So as you probably would imagine, they are very troll heavy in terms of support or buffs, etc. It is, I think you would perhaps not take it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the math hammery people might look and think this X, Y, and Z is really good to use. Otherwise, yes, I think it is basically if you have lots of trolls, because there are things that help with regeneration, there are things that help with stupidity, and then they have Acidic Bile, Torrent of Filth, and Fetoed or Whirlpool, which essentially do mid to low level AP, range again attacks, direct attacks, magic missiles or magic vortexes, and assailment spells. Everything else is pretty much either to do with supporting things with stupidity or supporting things with regeneration, as you can imagine with troll magic. So, yeah, a bit of fun. I like that. And of course, if you're taking a troll horde, then you're probably going to want to utilize this because it'll definitely help and buff your units and probably get the most out of the trolls that you're fielding. Yeah. Now, in terms of the magic items, again, there is a couple in here, much like the other Arcane journals. There are a couple in here that you can take regardless, but there's also some that you need to take associated with pretty much the Armies of Renown. It doesn't have to be, but pretty much is the case. But what we have, there's some good ones here. We have Dead Hard Armor in the Magic Armor, which is Black Orc bosses or Orc bosses whose troop type is infantry, cavalry, or chariot only. The Dead Hard Armor suit is a full plate. In addition, the wearer improves their toughness characteristic by 1. And that's 35 points. So I don't think that's too bad for 35 points. Comment below if you disagree. But extra toughness is always handy. And then the full plate on top of that, you can make them pretty sturdy orc bosses for sure. There's also a nice little banner here called the Spider Banner. And essentially it is giving you poison attacks if you don't have it. If you do have poison attacks, it goes up to a 5+, which I think is pretty handy as well. That 5+ is quite nice, and it's only 35 points for that banner. So there's a couple of interesting magic items. The one I really like though, which I think might be a sleeper, is the Thinking Orcs At. And the wearer of the Thinking Orcs At improves their initiative characteristic by 1, which is, I think, can be kind of helpful, right? Anything that improves your initiative, especially if you get charged or you're in a second round of combat, etc., that little pip of initiative can help between the difference between you striking first or striking at the same time, because obviously orcs and goblins are renowned for having a lower initiative than others, so it could put you on a level playing field. But in addition, the wearer and any unit they have joined is not subject to the impetuous rule, which I think is big, because obviously impetuous can be a bit of a pain sometimes when you don't want that particular charge to go off, or you have plans that kind of fall apart in classic orc style. Not being subject to impetuous there allows for a bit more reliance your game plan with that particular unit may be, if you have impetuous, could all go down the drain. But if you continue, if you take this magic item, then you have a chance to have a more reliable unit going through with a better initiative. And it's only 25 points, and it's an enchanted item. So you can probably take that obviously on top of magic armor and everything else. So extra initiative removes impetuous with 25 points. I think that's pretty nice overall. So, like I said, quick review of the Orc and Goblin tribes. We're going to try and get a report out soon related to the Arcane Journal, probably using some of the magic items, etc. in this book. But unfortunately, like I mentioned, it's going to be difficult to try and get these Armies of Renown together with what we have currently in the studio. Let me know what you think below about this journal. I didn't want to go page for page throughout all because people have seen the updates on Warhammer community, and I don't want to spoil other things people do, of course. But yeah, I think overall, fun, some interesting points. Probably a lot of bits I've missed in there, don't be wrong, but comment below what your favorite bits are or bits that you might be interested in. But yeah, I'm a little bit saddened that it's not what I view as accessible Armies of Renown, like we've seen so far in the previous Arcane journals, that players can take their existing armies, probably add a little bit, and be able to use an Army of Renown, whereas this one, I think, is a lot more specialized. Is it what we're going to be seeing going forward in other Arcane journals? I don't know, but it'll be interesting to find out. So thanks for watching, appreciate it, and if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button because it's free, and I'll see you again very, very soon.